You can now get a 30-day trial to experience The Athletic for free. Visit the link in the description below to try it now.
Inter Miami are one of the newest and most fashionable football clubs in the world. An MLS franchise befitting of David Beckham's image as a global superstar, glamorous and good-looking, and based in one of the planet's most desirable cities. It just so happens that Miami's nickname of the Magic City is entirely appropriate, because all of this is an illusion. An illusion. Because you see, MLS Commissioner Don Garber recently dropped a metaphorical hammer on Inter Miami, sanctioning the club with a substantial punishment for violating the league's roster rules and putting a major dent in its short-term ambitions. Now, for context, Inter Miami is, of course, Beckham's franchise, but he's really just part of an ownership group which includes the CEOs of Sprint, a telecommunications company, and SoftBank, which is like a bank, but the insides are spongy, and you can bounce around. Whoopee! And another is the CEO and founder of Maztec, which nobody knows what it is, but David Beckham remains the team's public face. You see, all the way back in 2007, David Beckham was given the option to acquire an MLS franchise as part of the agreement which brought him to the league in the first place. The saga of Inter Miami's beginnings rumbled on for close to a decade. So long, in fact, that you might think it would be impossible for them to be underprepared after a decade of preparation. But they were. This reminds me of a barbecue I once had. It was next month, and I didn't really do a lot to prepare for it. I picked up a couple of buns and maybe a sausage, because next month is a long way away, isn't it? But then all of a sudden, it was next month, and I ended up having to barbecue a microwave meal because that's all I really had. But you can't barbecue a microwave meal, because the microwave just sets on fire. You see, after a lengthy recruitment process during which the club looked for a managerial star, with the likes of Roberto Martinez, Marcelo Gallardo, and Patrick Vieira targeted, they eventually appointed Diego Alonso just a few weeks before pre-season began. I don't know who that is. Another thing they did is hire their head coach after 21 players had already arrived, according to a smart, clear recruiting strategy in line with other MLS clubs. By targeting younger players who could develop, appreciate and value and then be sold on for profit, Inter Miami could go on to great things as a self-sustainable club. And so a combined £12 million spend on a couple of 21-year-olds with lots of potential suited the strategy. But then Inter Miami lost 5 games in a row, scoring just 3 goals. And somewhere within that streak, they decided to sign French veteran midfielder Blaise Matuidi, 34, and Argentinian forward Gonzalo Higuain, 33. That's different! This is like when I built a treehouse in the woods, and it was going to be the best treehouse in all the land, and different to all the other treehouses. My treehouse was going to be built with sustainably sourced wood, constructed in the sunshine according to a highly detailed blueprint, and be a place all visitors to the wood could enjoy forevermore. But quickly I realized that 3 bits of wood wasn't going to be enough to build an entire house, and it started to rain. So instead of my original design, I climbed into the trees, armed with my bits of wood, hung my jacket off a branch over my head, and sat on a metal sheet that I'd found in a car park and cried. The strategy had pivoted.
MLS targeted this period for sanctions.
Thanks, Bebot.
No problem, dude.
And Bebot's right, because there are 2 ways for a league franchise to legally exceed the agreed salary cap. Firstly, by using targeted allocation money, which is made available to each MLS club in addition to their salary. Or secondly, by using one of 3 designated player spots. Now, David Beckham was actually MLS's original designated player, which is a mechanic that allows a team to sign a player who would otherwise take them beyond the cap, but more importantly, to compete for that same signing with big-name teams from other countries. And it's this privilege that Inter Miami have been found guilty of abusing, because Matuidi was not a designated player, even though he should have been. He was paid more than was allowable for a targeted allocation money player, which enabled the club to keep a DP spot open for Higuain. What makes it a bit worse is that Matuidi is actually paid somewhere around $5.2 to $5.6 million per year, making him one of the highest paid players in the whole league. Now, this is like that time that I boarded a ship. A ship they said was unsinkable. A ship that left the merry port of Southampton on its way to a new life in America. I was a third-class passenger on this unsinkable ship, but on board I met a sexy aristocrat when I was spitting off the side of the deck. Anyway, one thing led to another, and we ended up doing a bit of How's Your Father in the back of a VW Beetle. And later, I froze to death. And the ship sank!
Information time!
Oh! So 3 designated players were really 4 in the 2020 season. Or 5, actually. 5, because the investigation also proved that Colombian defender Andres Reyes should also have been classified as 1. And 5 is more than 3. There were a couple of other financial indiscretions as well, but it's important to say that this is not wholly unusual in US sports. Inter Miami have simply been caught, and the punishments they've incurred will severely hamper them over the next few years. And to explain more about this, here's a skeleton.
The club were fined $2 million, and managing owner Jorge Mas was fined $250,000 for failing to disclose his knowledge of the Matuidi violation at the appropriate time required under the MLS rules. The investigation found no evidence of wrongdoing by any of the other owning partners, although former COO and sporting director Paul McDonough will serve a ban from MLS until the end of 2022.
Thanks, skeleton. Now listen, we should say that in the present day, the situation sounds healthier. McDonough has been replaced by a new sporting director, Chris Henderson, or as I like to call him, Crenderson. New head coach Phil Neville is well thought of too, despite having no experience in the men's senior game. And away from the pitch, the now better stocked commercial department struck an agreement for the naming rights to the club's Fort Lauderdale Stadium. I think they should call the stadium Mr. Stadium, because that's a nice name for a stadium. What do you think? So, although things are looking up, the club's ambitions will be challenged over the next 2 years and kept in check by those inhibiting punishments. Whether Inter Miami can ever add substance to their style is unclear, but the location and glamorous reputation gives them a good start. In the words of the great Will Smith, welcome to Miami. Salami. Good night.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is where the Manchester United reporters revealed the truth behind the club's Jadon Sancho transfer fiasco, where the Tottenham reporters brought you news of Gareth Bale's return before anyone else, where the Chelsea reporters told us 3 days before his sacking that Frank Lampard was on the verge of losing his job. And you can try it now for free for 30 days. See the link in the description.